still a b-boy. From the old to the new, still a b-boy. Too bold for the school, still a b-boy. East coast to the west, b-boys worldwide, we supposed to be blessed, still a b-boy.
What's up, b-boys and b-girls? This week we're heading to Bruce City, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my backyard, to talk about one of the top MCs to ever come out of the mill. From his early solo work to Rearranged, 1848, and so much more, he's been putting it down for decades. Ladies and gentlemen, Slang Hughes, just Slang, no matter what you call him, welcome to the podcast. Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise to see the new album you put out.
Thank you. That was the weird thing about that, Chris, is I had no intentions of doing that. Like when I say, you remember when we did the first volume 1 album,
Right.
it was kind of like it was just kind of like an experiment. I thought it was almost organic in a sense, and I came up with the concept of free association. That's kind of just like letting the spirit guide. I'm not trying to be religious, spiritual, nothing like that. But when I literally say to you, I completed that album and released it on Dilla's nationally celebrated day. Dude, I had no idea that was all going to come together like that. It was just like I started doing a song. I did 2 songs. And then I was like, you know what? I still kind of got the feeling for this. I was just doing, sometimes it wasn't meant to be a project.
Right.
I was like, I had all these Dilla beats. I was listening to him so heavy. Let me just put a song together. And I kept writing. Then I kept writing. Before you knew it, and you know how that goes. Sometimes
right.
You can't stop. You can't stop. And I couldn't stop. I'm like, what the heck? So by the time I got to probably 7, 8 songs, I'm like, I might as well go ahead and do the whole thing. And most of it turned out to be Dilla material, like I said. And just the fact that, like I said, I didn't intend to do that. And the other backstory about that is it's not even a story. It's kind of, you probably have some information on this. You're such a hip hop head, but Drez from Black Sheep, Black Sheep, obviously.
Yep.
So Drez actually is either completed with or put together a project called Dilla and Drez D&D.
They made a documentary about it. Did you see that?
Yeah, I just saw that maybe 2 weeks before I finished putting this thing out. And the reason it came to me because I was looking at a bunch of stuff on like Hip Hop DX, one of the websites or whatever. And I'm like, wait a minute. I said, this sounds familiar. I said I had heard rumblings about this, but I didn't know it was coming through. He had some problems getting the stuff cleared through the family. And when I saw the documentary, I'm like, dude, what are you doing, Jason? I'm like, all of this stuff, like I had so many of these instrumentals that like over time I just collected because I'm a big, as you know, Dilla head, Dilla fan. Purely for listening. Like I wasn't even like in the concept of let me write to this stuff. Because Dilla was one of the artists and they said it in the documentary, you don't want to take his music and then like just put a dud on it. You want it to be conceptual, to mean something, to at least say something that's creative, or at least to the point where people will be like, okay, yeah, you did your thing on Dilla stuff. But I got to the point where I was like, I'm an artist that nobody really like on a national level. I won't get to that point where he's at, so I'm not going to make any money off of it. I reached out to Miss Yancey actually via LinkedIn.
Yeah.
just as a courtesy, because I'm like, what in the case? What if in the case that she gets rumblings or hears about it or whatever? Because I'm gonna tell you this, track list, when he did the review on it, I wasn't expecting anybody to listen to it. That next morning after I released it, I'm like, what? I said, bro, I'm looking at this thing. I said, this is John doing a review. I said, this is crazy. I appreciate it, but I was like, I really just wanted to do it, honestly, for cathartic, therapeutic reasons. I'm like, writing, that's what we do. It keeps us in a space where we can see the world as we need to see it or whatever. MCing, how we used to do and everything, even the shows. And like, when I just say it was just one of the things that came together that I had no intentions of coming together. I can't explain it it just, and to be honest with you, dude, I do believe, and you were talking about universal law earlier on the email. I believe this is the best thing I've done since then. And the reason I'm saying that is I know the work that I put into it was, I remember when I did universal law, it was effortless. You know, back when you're younger, you have a lot more things to say. You don't really, we didn't really know pretty much what we wanted to say, but we were forming our opinions and starting to form how we wanted to say it. And now that I've like pretty much said pretty much everything I wanted to say, I was like, I still got more to say. And it was done, like I said, it was done in a way that I believe. I put it to you this way: there's a song on there called "Dream." It's track number 7. It's actually a true dream that I had, and like I went back and forth with Mike in the studio about. I'm like, I did this, I did this, and I wrote it, but I don't think it's gonna come out to the way that it's not rhythmic. It doesn't really rhyme in patterns. But when I started doing it, it just made sense because it reminded me of just like the old school storytelling.
Right.
And I kind of just took it as something that, man, just tell the story, because it was to me it was an incredibly just memorable dream I had. Like I can't explain it. It was just, sometimes if you're into that type of thing, you kind of look at what your dreams mean and all that type of stuff. But I was like, I gotta document this, and then I started writing a song. So it, to sum it up, it came out of nowhere. But I do believe that this J versus J project that I did. I believe it's the strongest thing I've done since Universal Law. I think lyrically, the production was done by Dilla, so enough said. But lyrically, man, it's I took my time in crafting ideas that I felt could connect with people. And even if you don't know who Dilla was, like, you kind of get a feeling of, even, through the storytelling. What I did with Cool J was I just tried to connect. Like, I met his uncle in Atlanta. That's true. When I was hanging out with the Roots, I met his uncle there, and the first question I asked him, I was like, man, like, how did he craft all this incredible music? Like, how did he? First thing he said, man, he said he said James. He called him James. He was way more than the music. He said this was the type of family member. I think we can all relate to somebody who was just resourceful, type of person that was there for everybody, type of person that you could count on. He was somebody that just was a great friend, and it came out in his music because you saw the passionate side of everything that he did. And some of it could be funny, some of it could be serious, just representing himself as a human being. So that's my pitch on it, man. I'm not gonna say much more about it, but I believe, not trying to sell it, but I believe that it came out in a space that I believe I needed to do. Sometimes, going back to universal law,
Right.
things come full circle. I had the same feeling when I crafted this album that I did with universal law. Like I said, it was effortless. I put a lot of hard work into it, but it felt natural, felt organic, it felt right.
And that's when the best music is made, when it just flows right
Man,
off.
yeah, so it is what it is. And I never, like I said, I didn't think that I really would want to do a whole project again. But I said, let me put this out here as a little surprise and see if anybody.
No, I was pleasantly
But it's
surprised.
cool.
I was like, oh shit. I love the tribute song to Ted Jew.
One of my favorites.
That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
great to hear. You did a great job with that. Just a great record all around. But I want to rewind and take us back to the beginning. Always ask every guest I have, what are some of your earliest memories of hearing hip hop?
I think if I could take it back as far as, now you relate to this. Well, I'm a little bit older than you, but and I got the vinyls. I have the vinyls still. I don't know, it's probably somewhere in storage. But the movie Breaking, Ice-T had a song on there called Reckless. That may have been the first song I really paid attention to. I had heard Run DMC. I think it maybe came out around, when was the movie Breaking? Like
84. 84, yeah.
85, 84.
Yeah.
But early. Like I was 7, 8. But when I heard that song, I can't explain what it was. Just the way that Ice-T did that. I'm not a big Ice-T fan, no disrespect, but like the way that he did that at the time, it was so innovative. His voice was distinct. The production on that was the Evil D that did that, or
No, I think
maybe not
Chris the Glove
Chris the
did
Glove.
that beat. Yep.
Exactly. It was at the time it was just like, for me, that movie was big. Like a lot of the pop culture was really a lot of the stuff that we remember them breaking on cardboard and doing stuff that we saw them doing in the movies and stuff, and even around the neighborhoods in Milwaukee. These kids, kids were like, it was popping, as they say, or used to say, or whatever. But that was probably the first time I could really say I paid attention outside of Run DMC, that I paid attention to how somebody delivered something, like his whole presence about the microphone. And it really just, like, for me, I think the whole soundtrack was crazy. But for some reason, I could go back and listen to that song right now. Not that I remember the whole song, the lyrics and everything, but I think that's probably the first time I really started to pay attention, because I was like, this is it. As a kid, I just felt like, you remember the feeling. You was like,
yeah,
it was just like, dude, this is it. I mean, my older brother Che,
right.
he was listening to LL Cool J at the time. I think came out 85, 86. I first bought that tape. That's the first tape I can remember memorizing pretty much almost front to back, the radio joint. But it was that Ice-T Reckless song off of that soundtrack. That's the first real, like, true memory. Of course, I heard, Sugar Hill Gang and all that stuff at the parties, house parties, but I was so young then that it was just more like a kind of background music. We listened to, my family listened to a lot of jazz fusion, a lot of funk, R&B, all kinds of stuff. Definitely the point in time I probably started paying attention to rap music, and made it probably one of the things that I said, I want to listen to this music, like, not just listen to it, but I want to learn about the artists. I want to keep seeing who's coming out. I said once Run DMC really hit, it was over.
Right.
I mean, we had to pretty much, going, was it Tuesdays, I think, was the new release day.
Yep.
For the music, Music Land, Sam Goody. Man, you're going to get the tapes. You remember going and smelling the tapes. You remember the smell of the tapes?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, the plastic smell. Yeah, after you
the
take
plastic
that.
smell. I mean, just things like that bring back memories of just kind of thinking about those first days.
And what the younger generation needs to understand is, in the 80s, when you and I are discovering hip hop and becoming, huge fans, it was still looked at as a fad. This wasn't something that was supposed to last 50 years. This was something like disco that was going to get played out, and everyone thought it was a fad. And it's hard for someone who's in their 20s now to really grasp that, because it became mainstream. But at the time, it was like your own little club. At least that's how I felt like. But who were some of your first favorite MCs as a kid?
So, LL Cool J, Biz Markie. Biz was the Aries, by the way. May he rest in power. I don't remember his birthday, but when I found that out, I was like, no wonder I like Biz Markie so much, because he had such a dynamic personality. LL Cool J, Biz Markie. We're talking about old school, but now if we bring it, you said were or are. Can I clarify that?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, do both.
It's Black Thought. Had a chance to meet him at one point. Q-Tip. Man, there's so many.
Right, it's endless.
Be honest with you, a lot of the stuff I listened to earlier on was West Coast. So I cannot even. It really became a thing when I came into high school. The early 90s, the East Coast was really starting to really took off outside of Run DMC. Like the whole West Coast thing that popped off mid 90s, gangster rap and all of that stuff. Prior to that, so many folks in my circle we listened to a lot of East Coast stuff. But when I was coming up, Ice Cube, how I forget him. Man, it's so many.
It's an endless list.
It's like I could sit here and I probably would have to write it down. But Those are those are a few that I can think of off the top of my head. I don't want to start naming names because I'm sure I'm leaving out Cool Keith, Ultramagnetic, just different types of rappers that I think there was this group that I listened to when I was in school. They were called the Nonce. They had a big song called Mixtapes. And I love that album that they put out. It was I used to sell
mixtapes, but now I'm an MC. Yep.
So it was like you said, it was our own little club. You found who you found who you like to niche with. Some of the stuff you would honestly never believe I listened to, like CMW, MC8.
Oh,
He was big. Compton's Most Wanted. Something about MC8 and his delivery, his voice, his style was unique. So a lot of that early West Coast stuff I was listening to when I was way young. Even like I said, even Ice-T. Matter of fact, not that I wasn't a great big fan of Ice-T, but the OG album for me was one of my personal favorites because at the time I was going through a period in my life where I had lost a lot of people in my family. I had lost important people in my family, not to violence, but like older people. So some of the themes of the album at the time, I guess it was what I needed to hear. And Ice-T was always one of those guys who, and I think he reiterated that in one of his interviews recently. He said, I'm paraphrasing, he said, I never made music to glorify the gangster lifestyle, et cetera, et cetera. He said, I always had a message in my music. He did.
Always, yep.
And think about High Rollers, the video, you played yourself and those types of things. So think about the rapper Cam, who you had on the Rearranged album,
right.
20 years in the making. He was dope,
So dope.
So that was Ice Cube's cousin, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, yep.
Or is?
Yeah, it's Ice Cube's cousin, yep.
So, when I could go on and name probably 40 off the top of my head, but it'd probably take me a little bit longer because I'm getting older, Chris. I
understand.
My memory is old man memory. No, I'm just playing. But
so when did you first think maybe I can do this? When did you start writing yourself?
High school, believe it or not. I had I think I said this in some of the rhymes of the early Rearranged album, but I witnessed high school battling at the cafeteria tables, and I was like, these dudes are crazy. I said, they were going at each other, insulting each other. And some of the dudes that lost wouldn't eat their lunch because they felt so bad. So it was like, I don't want to get involved in this right now. But my senior year, I can remember I used to work at Rocky with Coco's at Bayshore. I'd come home after my work shift, or sometimes on the weekend before I started my late, like I worked the second shift. And I had the Too Short, what was the Too Short album at the time that had the Ghetto on it?
Short Dogs in the House.
Short Dogs in the House. He had a lot of extended instrumentals on that album and extended like stuff that just played on. So I had the dual cassette player, so I did the thing, put one in, then put the record in, put the microphone in, and I did a lot of freestyling, unfortunately. And then finally, I started writing some stuff. I did some stuff to Too Short, did some stuff to probably, this is like 1993 ish, 4-ish. So I was a late bloomer. Like it took me probably all of my young adulthood to really see how the music was crafted and who was coming along, all the different styles. But I never really understand this. I always wrote. I was always like writing poetry. English was always one of my best. It's always one of my best subjects. I was more of a creative person than a numbers person. Parents will tell you that. People who knew me tell you that. But I never really thought that I could have a voice like that until I probably started writing stuff. And that, in full honesty, that really didn't come until my first couple years in college. Because at that point, I was probably starting to see the world a little differently, explore and experience a little bit more. Being down in Kentucky and had nothing else to do. Bluegrass State. I played basketball, but besides that, going to class, man, I'm writing rhymes between class. Like I said on the album, it was nothing to do down there. So it gave me the opportunity to explore my own mind state, what was going on in the world, what was going on in my little world, and be creative and imaginative with it. You know what I'm saying? So I'd say the meaningful stuff didn't happen until like the mid to late 90s when I was down there in school. But I first started my senior year in high school. I was just messing around with Too Short instrumentals. Matter of fact, I think Public Enemy's Welcome to the Terror Dome, I did a little demo to that. That might have been a freestyle partial. The Crooklyn Dodgers, they had a song that came out back in 94, 95. I think Q-Tip produced it. I bought that tape that had the instrumental on the B-side. I actually wrote to that, kind of did like a song that was like, if you remember the song that we did on, what was the name of the song on the first Rearranged album? Life's Fair.
Right.
It was kind of subject. It was the subject matter was like real life tragedy type stuff, and so I did something similar to that. It was a process, but I definitely would say, you know, the first time that I really took note to what I wanted to say was probably mid 90s when I started formulating more of a voice when I was in school down in Kentucky and stuff. But I first started 94, 93, 94 when I was a senior in high school, man.
I believe it was 1999 is when I first heard you, and that was the song Copywriters. And then I did a compilation that year together like Voltron. So that was the first time I heard you. And then we hooked up, obviously started Rearranged and all that. What are some of your memories from that era when you took it from just doing in your room to where we kind of stepped out? We ended up in a, you know, first kind of a home studio, Warren, and then in a studio. What are some of your memories of that era?
Yeah, that was a special time. That was I would say that was a time where I think man, well, okay. Let me run this back because I'll connect some points here. 99, just graduated, like I was talking about, from school down in Kentucky. All of those ideas came to fruition through, that's when I was doing full-blown demos. I'm writing 16s. I learned how to write 16s based off of instrumentals anyway, because I'm counting the bars in between.
Right.
Or, you know, the verse that the rapper did was gone, so then you just fill that space. That's how I learned to write 16s. But did those demos, put them on tape, and then circa 99, since we're bringing that up, damn, March 15th. Well, let's put it to you this way. March 15th, I'm up here visiting my family, and my grandmother drops me back off at the Amtrak station, give her a big hug, say, hey, Grandma, I'm leaving. Love you, grandson. And we leave to go to Chicago, and the train is leaving out of Chicago going really, really fast. Ends up crashing in Bourbonnais, Illinois, and killing 11 people. And I had a demo tape. I had a duffel bag I was carrying with me, and my first major demo tape that I did was in that bag. And when that train crashed, we had to leave all of our, excuse my language, all of our shit,
I suppose,
and get the what off the train, right? So I didn't think about it until the next day. You know, we went to a shelter originally, and then they put us up in a hotel actually. And I'm thinking to myself, like, damn, you know, after all of that craziness had passed, I'm like, damn, it's my demo tape. You know, but you know, it's one of them things. I'm young. Right. I came out without a scratch, like, what? And I'm like, oh, finally we got all our stuff back, got our, you know, and I was able to make it back down to school and everything. So, fast forward, I graduated from school. That song Copywriters, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I had originally, I'm trying to remember if I had put that song out before you even heard it. So I think I may have done that especially for Together Like Voltron, or the other project you did had the black disc with the red writing on it.
Underwide.
Was
another wide. Yeah.
That was that. If I'm not mistaken, I had originally put it on that. But I did have that demo before I met you.
I think that's the first song I heard by you was Copywriters.
And if I'm not mistaken, I had put, there was a bunch of websites that had came out at that time. One of them was Andre.com. This is around the time internet was so, you know how it was.
Yeah.
Like there was no YouTube, there was no nothing, but there were a couple websites who you could send your music to. They post the songs, did reviews for them, and I had a bunch of people that listened to my stuff based off of that. And I think that's how you found me, if I'm not mistaken. One of those websites, and one of those songs was copyrighted. So I think that's how that circulated. I just, man, I remember that being a really, after all of that tragedy happened, I remember that being probably one of the things that I said, maybe this is the reason I'm here. Not necessarily to MC, but to maybe to get a message out. So then Universal Law was born out of that whole tragedy, believe it or not. But around that time, I can really say when we first started doing the Rearranged sessions and around early 2000, late 99, it was a grind, but I loved it.
Right.
Like, because it was a second job. Like we were both working full time at the same time. You come down on the weekend or whatever, and God, like 10-hour sessions, 6, 7, 8-hour sessions. But I loved it because for me, it wasn't work. For me, it was this is really what I want to do first off, outside of being at a desk all day talking to people who've been in auto accidents. I want to get on the mic and let people know what's really going on. That's what I really wanted my career to be. I wanted that to be something that I could sustain myself off of. So those opportunities, man, that was golden. That was golden. It was really like I think about I think the first time we probably met Jesse. I don't know what my initial thought was. I can't remember exactly what but I'm thinking I probably had a thought like, this shit ain't gonna work. Because I was like, he's crazy. He's too unfocused. But I think once we gave him an idea of what we really wanted to do, we already had the first album, pretty much the whole demo.
Yep.
So all he had to do was come in there and pretty much understand our vision and make sure that we recorded it with the sound we needed, the technicality and all that stuff. And we knew nothing about that, or at least I didn't.
I didn't know.
I mean, that was my first time ever being in a recording studio like that. But coming off of that, going from writing to putting stuff on from a microphone to a dual cassette tape to going to a home studio one to now going to the band center.
Right.
It was all like a mini full cycle of like me seeing a realization of a dream come true. Because I'll tell you this, when I said this on the intro to this new album, it's weird, but as a kid, I always had a dream to be an entertainer. I didn't know in what sense, acting or singing, whatever. I didn't never have singing voice, but the Gong Show was a big favorite show of mine. And there was a dude on there. His name was Gene. Can't remember Gene's last name, but they called him Mr. Gene or Gene. And he was basically this dude who was kind of like a freelancer. He'd come out and dance or whatever. But it was always these jazz tunes he danced to and stuff. And my mom's, my parents, my family will tell you, like, when that came on, I was doing Mr. Gene's whole thing. So they were like, this boy gonna be an entertainer. I'm like, so it always stuck with me that I'm like, maybe, not even just the entertainment portion of it, but just being creative. That's what I really held close when I met you. And I'm like, you know what, maybe this is, because when I'm gonna keep it funky with you. When I first met you, I'm like, nah, like what, like what this dude know about hip hop? Right. But you proved me, like, I'm like, this dude knows way more than I do. Like what, like some of the, like, so it was kind of like a reawakening for me. I kind of had to check myself because I'm like, damn, I need to give myself this chance because you never know. You never know what could come of anything, and opportunities knock like that sometimes, and you might not see it as what it potentially could be. You just have to kind of ride it out. But at the time we were grinding, that shit was golden, dude. It was an opportunity in a time. I think I look back now and my work ethic has always been there, but as I've gotten older, like I said, you don't have as much go as you used to when you're younger. But those are good times, man. We always gonna be older heads and look back at it like, things might not have gone as smoothly with some of the management and stuff initially. And I think, what was it, Natalie?
Natalie,
Yeah. I mean,
there was a lot
water
of
under,
speed bumps and
stuff like that happens. But doing the shows and being able to see our vision come true and to share that with people who appreciated somebody trying to just express themselves. Really, that's what it came down to. They came out and supported. We met a lot of great artists. I remember the first time meeting Teju at probably the tasting room. I'm like, who is this dude? And his whole crew, Rob and Hanif Ski. It was like it was just a whole time that I think, looking back on it, I wish we could still have times like that where you could basically, because now ever since 9/11, I'm just gonna say, like, human beings can't trust each other, man. Like, if I was to go, and the track lister will tell you this, John will tell you this, I had a show that I was gonna do right before I released Boombox Music, which I released in 2017. A couple summers before that, I can't remember, it was one of these venues that did like a 10 artists kind of, basically 10 people would perform within like an hour's time. So you maybe got 10 minutes or something like that. I didn't know this. So they kind of, I kind of got not suckered into, but I was kind of like thinking at the time, I'm like, man, I performed, I performed in Kentucky, I performed in Sheboygan. We've done shows here, we've done shows there. Basically got minimal pay for them. Not that that was a big thing or anything, but it was like I was at the point where I'm like, it's time for this to start equating to something bigger. And I'm like, I want to be the main. Maybe that was my ego at the time. I want to be the main attraction, And I remember telling John, I was like, nah, man, F that show, because it's like 10 or 12 other artists and acts, and I've listened to somebody because they had the names listed. I listened to some of their music. I'm like, man, I put these dudes to shame. And I'm like, I shouldn't have to be up on stage with 10 other dudes that don't even appreciate the culture. And right now, the state that we're in, if I got offered a show with some of these young dudes, no, thank you. I'll do it from home. Like I can't trust this world in the state that it is, because all it is beefing, and everybody wants to make money off of whether it's real or portrayed. And I ain't got time for that. We get older, we start to realize the value of life is. I realize that going through that train crash, but the value of life, you don't
never know.
Play with that, man. Oh man, no, don't play with that. But I miss those times because it was more genuine, authentic.
It was very, very genuine, authentic, just love for it. Still one of my favorite projects I was ever a part of, just because the love I had for it. And when you're in your early 20s, it's easy to just go.
For sure.
If I did a 10-hour session, I might need a week to recover now that I'm 45, right? But you spoke on Teju. I want to just touch on him a bit. That was another reminder that life is short. When we lost, it's almost been 10 years, which is crazy to think.
Next month it'll be May. It'll be
May.
After May.
Yeah, that's crazy to think.
10 years.
But do you have any, what are some of your best memories about Teju, and how did the song about him on the new joint all come together?
I can remember. I don't know if it was. Oh boy, might have been. And I kind of said that in the song when I did the song Pyro. I believe it was one of your sessions. I was living in Atlanta at the time, and I came back here to do. You had like a project you were working on, and you asked me to feature, and I had I believe he was there, if I'm not mistaken. He and Kevin and you were there, and I just remember him being in the back. He was just like smiling, like I put that beat on. He always was a supportive person, no matter what we did. It was like he saw the gold in everything we did. I think my funniest story about him, I could say this now because anyway, he, we were in a session, and I don't know what Jesse was on or whatever. Maybe he was acting weird, but I think Ted had probably come in from, this is before he had obviously became Christian or whatever, but
Right.
he had came in and probably had took a toke from a blunt or whatever. I'm just gonna say that. I was like, at the time I had just started smoking or whatever, right? And he asked me out of the blue, he was like, so Slang, you smoke? I was like, I lied to him. I was like, nah, because
Huh?
in my eyes, I didn't want him to feel like I was like, I felt like he had such a view of me that I didn't want to taint. And I felt bad for telling him, for lying to him, first of all. But I felt like the reason I did that is because I was like, I don't even know. It was probably just instinct, because I kind of didn't want him to think that my value was less, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe he was like, because he probably would have been like, oh, okay, well, let's go hit the blunt. But he asked me that, it kind of like floored me. I was like, no. But I think just really just the times that we spent in the studio outside of the Rearranged and 1848 stuff, just when we were mixing stuff down, we got to see each other's personalities. That's when I got to see that he was the real glue of all of us there. I think he understood the importance of having a unit together and keeping people's spirits, because those, some of those long sessions, everybody got tired.
Right.
But it would be like one of them things where he would just I don't know what it was, but it was just the energy. That's all I could say, because it was something, maybe something so serious, and he would bring the fun out of it. Maybe something that happened in the world. But the song came about when I was down south, and when I was living in Atlanta. I had done the Elements of the Divine album. That was '08. At that time, I was like, I'm done. Because at the time I got sick. Actually, I had this right before I had a surgery, actually. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is about to be my last bit of music. And I think I talked to him maybe that summer of '08. And he called me. It might have been around his birthday time, because his birthday was in April. Mine was in early April. His was April 30th, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. 4/30/73.
Yes.
And he was like, so what you working on, man? I'm like, man, I'm working on my life, Ted. I'm like, and we just started chopping it up and stuff. He just was like, man, what's going on? He was like, I think I had just broken up with my girlfriend down there or whatever. I was like, man, I'm trying to get my life right now. It's like, I should be married by now. I went through the thing with my ex-fiance. That didn't work. And he was like, man, you can't give up. You can't do that. Man, the game needs you, Slang. The game needs you. We need you. I was like, yeah, man, I appreciate it. And that was in '08, if I'm not mistaken. That's because that's right after I released that album. Fast forward to, let me see, probably late last year, or I'll even say, when did I come up with the idea for the song? No, not even that. This was probably around the time, late 2020. COVID hit when?
2020.
Early
March.
2021.
March, yeah.
So, as I'm sure you've experienced, like, not even the COVID necessarily, but Jesse was one of the last 4 people that I lost in a 4-month span, ranging from September 2020. He passed in January 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Jesse did. My stepsister passed from cancer. I had My aunt passed from some type of liver disease, and I lost my other aunt suddenly to, I think it was either a cancer or something, Christmas Day.
Man.
And that was the last one right before Jesse passed. I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, this is too much. And I was like, this is crazy. And I had just finished completing the album called Sides, which is kind of a little lesser known album I did. But during the concept of that album, I was going back and forth with, I don't want to put this out. Maybe I should. And then I had a concept for a song called Keep On. And I'm like, I just remember Ted, you telling me to keep going, keep going, keep going. And I never came up with a beat for it. I'm like, I got this concept. I don't know. I want to. So I kind of shelved it. It was really originally supposed to be for that project for Sides, which came out. I released it in February 2021. So fast forward now to this project. I'm going through. This is probably 4 or 5 songs in. Out of nowhere, I'm just like, man, I got to keep going. I'm like, oh shit. I go back through all my papers and I'm looking through this. I'm like, I got this old song concept. I said, this is about Ted Ju. And this whole project is Dilla related. Both of them are deceased, but they're inspirations to me. Big inspirations. I didn't know Dilla, maybe through a couple stories from maybe his family. But I got to know Ted Ju fairly well. Not great, but I got to know him pretty good just through. And I said, this man sat down and started writing that. And I probably wrote, that's probably the one song on that album that probably took less than 30 minutes to write, I BS you not. Because it was so like, it was emotional to the point where, and I not that I shed tears or anything, but it was more like a uplifting feeling. I got to the point where the second verse I say, life, you never promise the next day, so why short the moment? Yeah, a giant standing over you got you knocked down, chance to get up and retort your opponent. I was thinking about all the stuff I had been through, doubters and just real life situations where I was like, Ted, you didn't care. He was like, I don't care what anybody say. I'm gonna do my 13 and a half bars and I'm gonna keep it going.
Right.
And we might have laughed, and
Oh yeah.
His style was so unique and it was still so dope at the same time. And you can't deny that. So when I started writing it, I'm like, I'm not even, I did the chorus, but the way that I broke the song down was I put that break in there as a moment of silence to him. But I was like, this is something he would appreciate because it was off kilter.
Right.
It was so like, the other idea was like, I'm a big Common fan. So that sample from Like Water for Chocolate, I always heard it in my head. I was like, I want that vocal sample, but I don't have the beat. I put the beat together. I was like, that's just perfect. So keep on, that's how that came about. That's probably one of the easiest ones on there because it was already in my heart. Ted was a big part of what we all did, and that means a lot that resonated with y'all too, because he
Definitely.
was he was there for everybody. So
he was one of the most genuinely nice people I think I've ever met. Just positive. In the face of anything, he was always positive. Yeah, I still think about him on a regular basis 10 years later. Amazing man, amazing man. And you also touched on Jesse, who, we lost a few years ago. You talked about.
Yeah.
He was the only engineer I used for 20 years.
Right.
And I didn't realize till after he had passed away how important he was to the formula. It was almost like he was kind of part of the group.
He was.
Because he just knew us so well. I didn't have to explain. He was so integral, and I don't think I ever appreciated it fully while he was alive. But another one that, it's sad. Any one or two funny stories about Jesse? I mean, he was crazy in a good way sometimes. I mean,
I'll tell you, there was probably a session. Oh, I know. This wasn't really a funny story, but this was probably during the last Rearranged, probably volume 3, maybe not the 20 years in the making.
Right.
but it might have been volume 3. And we're sitting there in this was after the big main studio got torched or whatever happened. We were in the small studio.
Yep.
And there was I think I remember Jesse mentioning something about, he was like, I had this guy come in and he was all irate about the mix he did and something, and he wanted to come back, and he had heard from the guy, and the guy said he was coming in, and I think we're sitting there, we're doing our mix down for whatever session was, and this guy comes in, it was a black dude, and he just I don't know if you remember, he just barges in, and he's like, yo, Jesse, he stands right over, like, Jesse, what's up with Jesse was like, okay, I'm going to get it to you. I got these guys in here right now. And first thing I remember saying, like, this is a young dude. This is around that time when, we started really seeing in your face, like, the craziness of, hey, your life could be exchanged for something as trivial as this. So I'm just thinking to myself, let me just cool out. Because the first thing I wanted to say was like, dude, get your fucking ass out of here. This is our session. That's so disrespectful. So I was like, dude leaves, and Jesse was like, yeah, this is the guy that punched me. And I think he was like, yeah, this guy came in and he was so irate, he came in and punched me. And then he said it was like a love tap though. He's like, this guy couldn't even punch. So I just remember after that, the dude was still in the lobby. I go out and I'm circling around I think I went to the bathroom, and I heard a dude out there. And I come out and he's leaving or whatever. And I'm getting ready to go to my car I think I was probably about to go puff up, take a smoke or whatever. And the dude turned around like he wanted, and I'm just like, dude, I'm not even on that. I just told him up front. I said, because he didn't even say nothing. He just looked like, I said, dude, I'm not even on that. I walked to my car. Probably had the thing under the seat, but I'm like,
never know.
But it was like, those times. That's when I realized music was probably the most important, because that stuff shouldn't be necessary. Us bringing that type of stuff to the studio, we got to protect ourselves.
Right.
I never thought in a million years that I would have to do that, have something like that where we have to come to the studio with protection and shit like that.
Right.
But it got to that point where, it was kind of like, and be honest with you, may you rest in peace and rest in power, Jesse, but some of the stuff he brought in there.
A lot of it.
Because some of the activities, like at least the folks he dealt with, they were, it was street stuff.
Right.
So, if he owed somebody some money at some point in time, which there were sessions for the last solo album I did before this, that Sides album, that was the last session I did. That was the last album I did with Jesse. There were several sessions he'd run out 10, 20, 30 minutes coming back like, oh, don't worry about it. Like that.
Yeah.
I had to wait for my guy, like Jesse. Like,
it was sad, yeah.
I look back at it and I'm like, we all have our demons and stuff. And it made me kind of reevaluate what's going on in my life. I went through a bunch of period of time where I'm like, I need to just give up smoking, because it's not doing anything for my cardiovascular health, and I'm not being as productive as I could be. But at the same time, it's like, we all have our, you can't be too hard on yourself, but at the same time, you look back and you got to learn as you progress and grow forward. But I think with Jess, it was always the best thing for me was it was always lively, even through the craziness like that. There was never a dull moment.
No.
He kept it fun. He kept it to the point where, for one thing, I respected a lot was his knowledge of music, his knowledge of the technicality of it, his efficiency, and like you said, he knew our product. He knew exactly how we wanted to move, how we wanted to. Once we got going, it was like, okay. Right. I think I remember you saying this, or you two were talking about it. And he was at the point where I think he was saying, I think I remember him saying specifically, maybe we should start a record label. Like literally him coming into the fold and saying, I'm going to be the engineer for this record label. You've already got 101st. Let's merge something to make it you know, whatever way he was thinking about taking it, I was like, you know, he's already a part of the group then. And technically he was.
Yep.
If
He
you could
was.
say
He
that.
was an important part. And you're right. I had conversations with him where, like, if music ever was 100% my job, like, you'd be
Mm-hmm.
the in-house producer because I couldn't imagine, or engineer. I couldn't imagine working with anyone else. And, rest in peace to Jesse. Like we said, he had his demons, but at his heart,
Yeah.
he was good, and he knew he was good at what he did. And we touched on it before. I just wanted to say it again. Universal Law, over 20 years old. I recently re-listened to it, and it holds up so damn well. That
Appreciate it.
might, I think that was you at your best. Not to say the new stuff isn't better, but just it came together so perfect. Listening to it, it was just almost
Thanks.
flawless.
Thanks,
So
man.
anyone who hasn't heard it, try to figure out a way. Is it available anywhere?
Oh, maybe it's time I go back and revisit at least that one. I've still got it. I just haven't digitally put it. I
Mhm.
might just go ahead and put it on YouTube, put it back up, put it up. I've never had it online because it's weird that you say that. Like when I was in Atlanta, people that I'm passing discs out. I'm not even selling them. I think probably had 500 count that I bought from CD Baby or whatever it was. I was using Lonely Records or whatever. I used the to make the CDs or whatever. I was giving them away, but I remember people down there. They were like, "Man, this is," and I was like, "This is from 2001." That's at that time it was like 05, 06. Like this is 4 or 5 years old. They were like, "But this is really good." I'm like, I don't know. It's one of them things. Like
Yeah.
that was the first out the gate. I remember, like I was telling you, I just it was born out of a tragedy. All of those songs were written post 99 after that train accident. And not to say it was meant to be where it was something as a message album. It was just more like I don't know how it even came together. I can't even tell a story about it because it my memories at that time are fractured. It's pre March 15th and post March 15th, meaning I I was I was in that train accident while I was basically about to graduate from school. Train accident, graduated school, and like the times in between there, making the music and demos and stuff that this album was born out of. Honestly, a lot of that stuff came from some of my demos. I must have been going through some really, really introspective, like I said, critical thinking times when I sent that email. It was just like school of life for me. Even as a college student, it was like not just going to class, but it was like the class of life. Like, what am I about to do with my life? What am I about to make my legacy be? That stuff a 20 something year old shouldn't necessarily be thinking of, but hell, I might not have had a chance to think of it had I been.
Right.
Look, man, I don't think that night when that train crashed, all of the fatalities were in the sleeper car. That was like the third car back from the main engine. 10, 15 minutes before the train crashed, I was up getting a hot dog at maybe the sixth car back where the food car was, watching a movie called What's Eating Gilbert Grape. I'm like, man, I'm getting sleepy. So I went back to my seat, dozed off. Boom, that's when the train. So when I literally say maybe they had a food car that was closer to the front, but I decided to
Hmm.
go to the one. And man,
You
like you
never
said,
know.
you never know.
Right.
So that album was born out of a tragedy. And to bring that back home, it's been 25 years. March 15th was, and I brought that up to I think my mother, and she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "It doesn't even seem like it's been that long." I can remember. Fortunately for me, I put it in a perspective. I wouldn't say overly traumatized by it. Obviously, it's something I think about from time to time, but it doesn't take up my time. But put it in a perspective that I still got things to do here. Universal law was one of those things that it probably came out the way it did because like a new lease on life feeling, like, oh wow, I can do this now. And me say what I can say about what I've experienced. I think that the title track even goes through that. I just say, you know, I can attest to the universe being what it is, and I'm not trying to get spiritual. I'm a human being, but things happen for a reason. Things happen for lessons. Things happen for sometimes things happen to knock us back into a place where we realize that we are here to do some work. That's that whole story. I think it was born out of a tragedy. Universal Law was, but it was something that I am proud of it. It's my first child. It's my eldest. My eldest grew up and aged well with time.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's good to hear, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dope album. And like I said, you know, I could sit here all night to go through everything. We've done so much together musically. You've done so much on your own. But again, people really need to check out the new J vs. J. I was so pleasantly surprised to see that you had done something because it had been a
Thank you,
minute.
man.
I love the project, and I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you. And I don't even know the count how many underground MCs and even some bigger ones, like we did a song with Cam, that I've been privileged to do songs with. And you still are one of the dopest MCs who has ever shared a song with me. So I was always honored to do all those rearranged albums. I'm glad to see you're still doing it. And maybe we'll do a part two. You know, I'd love to dig into 1848, your other solo albums. But
For sure.
I always like to end on a lighter note. I got this little, it's quick. I call it this or that. I'm going to give
All
you
right.
two options and you're going to pick the better option. And then I'll let you go, finish the Bucks
All right.
game. So we're doing albums, this or that. Eric
Gotcha.
B. and Rakim's Paid in Full or Big Daddy Kane, Long Live the Kane.
Eric being Rakim. That's tough.
This one tricks a lot of people up. Dr. Dre's The Chronic or Snoop's Doggy Style? See, when you think about
Snoop,
it.
man. Doggy Style.
Nice.
Doggy Style, man. Doggy Style.
Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory or Midnight Marauders?
Damn it. I knew he was going to ask this. Only because it's me. Well, this has got to be a quick this or that. I'm going to have to say Midnight Marauders because they shot up Milwaukee at the end. But Low End Theory is technically, aesthetically a better album. Midnight Marauders is just quick tidbit. They freestyled that album, by the way. Midnight Marauders. That's another. That's the rumor. They supposedly like freestyled the whole album. I'm gonna say Midnight.
They're both dope. Yeah. How about BDP, Criminal Minded or Public Enemy, Takes a Nation of Millions?
I'm on my PE stuff right now. Forgive me, KRS. It's got to be PE. Takes a Nation.
Run DMC's self-titled debut or Grandmaster Flash Furious 5, The Message?
Run DMC. Run DMC.
How about the Alcoholics 21 and Over or King T's Trifling album where we first saw the Alcoholics?
Damn. I'm going to say 21 and Over. That one holds a special place for some reason. Yeah.
It was only like 10 tracks, but they all were just so dope. It was like perfect.
That was well fit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well fit.
Then I'm doing East Coast producers, Pete Rock or DJ Premier.
That's crazy.
That's tough, right?
I'm going to say Primo. I've been listening to DJ Premier a lot lately. The reason I say that is I've just been listening to a Premier a lot lately. We're going to put it that way. But we're going to say Premier right now.
And we'll go to the West Coast producers. Dr. Dre or DJ Quick?
Damn. I'm going to have to go Dre.
That's usually where people go.
I'm going to have to go Dre.
Well, that's what I got for you. Plug any pluggables. Where can they get the new album? Anything else you want to promote?
For sure. So J vs. J is available on right now only on YouTube. Physical copies may become available later, possibly this summer. Really debating just doing the whole digital thing, but definitely check it out on YouTube. Probably within the next couple months, just due to this conversation, I will be uploading that Universal Law album. So take a look for that. Take a look out for that too. That's 2001 original Slang, and I guess I need to probably get back to letting people hear that, because actually I might go listen to it. I haven't listened to it in a while, and I appreciate it, man. I've been listening to so much like music, but get back to listen to a lot more hip hop lately, or maybe in the next couple months or whatever. But I appreciate you taking the time out to interview me and chat here. Feels like just talking about old hip hop and old times and old stories and stuff. So it's good, man. I appreciate you inviting me here. And,
people have been asking, I had everyone else I did a lot of music with, when's Slang going to be on? When's Slang's going to be on? So Slang is on now. For everyone listening, I'll put the link to the J vs. J in the comments and stuff. But hey, thank you. It was great catching up with you. We had a lot of great memories in hip hop.
Sure.
Keep on.
Yeah. R.I.P. Ted Frazier, yeah. Watching the world crumble before my very own eyes. Ted told me to keep on with my eyes on the prize. He said, Slang, you're one of the most talented guys I've had the pleasure of working with. Keep hammering them rhymes out your toolbox, cause fools got this game too hot. And that ain't cool in the game, cause they wanna be fake Tupacs. May have been his favorite rapper, just listen to my arrival. Vocal inflections and similar kind of style at the band center. Think I was tracking Pyro, he was in the back of the room snacking with a smile. That's why I go the extra mile whenever he reached out. He was putting together the temp, so I sent the beats out. Had a batch of maybe 30, sent him 20 of them. Guess how many he used? Every last one of them. Even when I didn't believe in me, he was a proponent of mine. His absence is left with silence. Let's have a moment in time.
Keep on.
Life, you never promised the next day, so why short the moment? Yeah, a giant standing over you, got you knocked down, chance to get up and retort your opponent. Keep on going forward, trying not to look back. Lot of pain in the suitcase, where I'ma put that? Open up, let it go, out the cargo of the train. When you got your head on right, ain't too hard to maintain. Stay the course, obey the force, don't leave a legacy negative. More than a life of hesitancy is one better lived. That's how I know my brother Ted a gift, cause even from the after, he reminded me to take my own medicine and keep on. My brother Ted, yo, he said keep on. Yo, he said to keep on. Never let your dreams fade, just keep on. Yeah.